I don't know what it's gonna, the video's gonna be like.
Okay, we'll find out.
So the next chapter is on carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, and by the way, the PowerPoint thing is already uploaded. The suggested problem for all the chapters, for chapter 5, 6, and 7 are already uploaded as well. So I need to start it. All right, so carbohydrates is probably one of my least favorite chapters for Biochemistry 1. If you remember at the very beginning of the semester, I explained to you that Biochemistry 1, you really learn about all the biomolecules. We went over proteins and enzymes. And it's not really until Biochemistry 2 that we take what we learned this semester and we start to apply it towards metabolic pathways. Okay? So carbohydrates is one of my least favorite chapters. However, next semester we have multiple metabolic pathways that deal with it, and those are much more interesting. But carbohydrates in and of themselves are kind of boring. Okay, there's not a whole lot. They're not as exciting, I guess, as proteins and lipids and all of that. All right, why is everything so small? Will it still let me? I have a feeling, I don't know what those little red lines are in the middle. I have a feeling that it cuts everything off on the video, so that should be really interesting. A lot of this chapter has to deal with vocabulary. So I think that's the reason why I don't like it. Okay, so there's just lots of vocabulary and I don't know, I didn't teach you guys for Organic Chemistry 2. Normally, whenever I taught Organic Chemistry 2, towards the end of the semester, I did a little, since not everybody goes on to take biochemistry, I did like a little primer on the different biomolecules. And so we covered like carbohydrates, we covered lipids, we covered proteins and things like that. We just do a little bit. And so this was usually a review of my Biochemistry 2 class. And so we go really fast. We're going to go really fast this time too. Like I said, you already have access to this. A lot of it really is vocabulary. So carbohydrates, typically, it's kind of for the most part, carbohydrates, they consider them being polysaccharides. There are some that are exceptions. Or you could say that they're either oxidized or reduced polysaccharides. Okay. Many times they play a role as an energy source, or they can be structural components, okay? And we'll go over some specific examples of what those are. The building block is a monosaccharide. One thing that you should be very happy that I do not make you do, that I had to do, was we had to memorize all of the monosaccharides, all the way up to like 8, from 3 to 8. You're only going to know glyceraldehyde just because of the fact that it's the simplest. And, well, because of the fact that not only is it the simplest, but it's the one that you see over and over and over and over again, especially next semester. Because it's only got 3 carbons, there's only 1. Okay, but no, we had to know all of them. We had lots of different mnemonics, and there's lots of them. But, and then we'll talk about ketoses versus aldoses. Just based off of its name, what do you suppose the difference is between a ketose and aldose? Yes, exactly. So aldoses are the saccharides that are an aldehyde, and the ketoses are the saccharides that are going to be ketones. Okay, I thought that was already up. But that's chapter 7 of Intro to Chemistry. Just a second, let me bring it up. Whoops, that's giving me an idea. Okay. Ooh, these are the monosaccharides. Not only are they classified by whether or not they're an aldehyde or a ketone, they're also classified by the number of carbon atoms. Number of carbon atoms in them. And so, does anyone remember what's the prefix for 3? Tri. So these are called trioses. So 4 would be a tetros. What would be 5? Pentose. And then 6 would be hexose, heptose, and then octose. Okay. And so that's why a lot of this is just reviews. Okay. Like I said, usually those are the ones that are biologically relevant. Go from 3 to 8. Okay. This is the only one that technically that you, well, actually, I won't even show it to you yet. I said that you're gonna need to know glyceraldehyde. So this is really simple. Glycerol, which you need to know glycerol. How many carbons are in glycerol? 3. And what makes glycerol glycerol? There's an alcohol in every single one. Okay, this is glycerol. Of course, remember each carbon wants to have 4 bonds, so the top and the bottom carbon each have 2 hydrogens. The middle carbon has 1 hydrogen on it. That's glycerol. Glyceraldehyde is where you just take one of those, since it's an aldehyde. Whoops, I did not mean to erase that part. There. Okay, that's glyceraldehyde. Of course, once again, there would be an H, and there are 2 hydrogens hanging off of this. See, that's why I say, if you know glycerol, you can make glyceraldehyde. Just like you can make glycerate or glyceric acid, it goes from an aldehyde to a carboxylic acid. That's glyceraldehyde, the way that I have it. The reason why I pointed that out is all of the monosaccharides literally are based off of glyceraldehyde. Okay. Oh my goodness, sorry. Okay, so glyceraldehyde. In biochemistry, biology, we like to use D and L versus R and S, or plus and minus. And so D stands for dextrorotary, which is the right. L is levorotary, it's the left. And it really had to do with the idea that you take plain polarized light, you shined it, because there's one chiral carbon in there, in the middle carbon, and if it rotates to the right, it was a D. If it rotated to the left, it was an L. And so that was pretty much it. But those are called enantiomers, since they're chiral. Okay. But you can put all of this together. DHAP, by the way, dihydroxyacetone. Oh, I'm sorry, I said DHAP. Dihydroxyacetone, it's got a phosphate on it. It's kind of dihydroxyacetone phosphate. They call it DHAP, DHAP. You're going to see it a lot next time. But we see glyceraldehyde here is an aldotriose. Because there's 3 carbons, it's a triose, and it's an aldehyde, so it's an aldo. Versus dihydroxyacetone is a ketotriose. But you can go ahead and have aldohexoses, you could have ketopentoses, you could have lots and lots of different names. And they all have, or they have different names. Okay. As to kind of give it away, but as you can see here, not only do we have this is an example of D-ribose, but they can be modified. And so, for example, in this one, the number 2 carbon, of course, has been dehydrated. And so it's now called deoxyribose. This is 2-deoxy-D-ribose, which is an aldopentose, which of course is used as a building block for, do we know? What's the deoxyribose a part of? DNA. So, not in this form, but yeah. Alrighty. Like I said, this is all, actually all this should be reviewed. Fisher projections, it's just another way. They do this a lot with carbohydrates. I bet like everything in the red lines gets shown, but everything outside the red lines gets cut off. Really awesome. For whatever reason, I keep picking up Muslim followers on my YouTube channel that keep clicking. I don't know why. I just know when it opens my watch list. Alright, so this is a Fisher projection. Just remember, all of the horizontal bars come out towards you, all the vertical bars go away from you. I fucking fight it. That kind of thing. But, and the carbons are just at the vertex, the intersection of the two. And so that's just another way. And they use that often. I've already mentioned D and L. What is so weird about carbohydrates, I find it weird about carbohydrates, is many times they have more than one chiral carbon. So we have to be able to differentiate. It's just, if you remember from organic chemistry, they'll say 2R, 2R, 3S, 4R, with commas. They don't typically do that. It would become very cumbersome to do that with carbohydrates. So what they do is it's all based off of glyceraldehyde, as I mentioned. And so the important thing here is if it's a D versus an L, we're only talking about the monosaccharides at this point, it has to do with what's called the penultimate carbon. It's the last chiral carbon. And what you do is you look to see if the alcohol on it is hanging off to the right or the left. Typically, if it's on the right, it's the D. If it's on the left, it's the L. And again, that was based off of glyceraldehyde, which only has 3 carbons and 1 hydrocarbon. But if you have something like glucose, which has at least 2 or 3 chiral carbons, you wouldn't know which one. So they always look at the penultimate, which means literally penultimate means next to last. That's the last chiral carbon in the Fisher projection. So here we go. So for each of these, we made it easy. If we look at, for A, the one on the left, there are 6 carbons, so what kind of ose is it? Hexose. And if we take it further, is it an aldohexose or a ketohexose, the one on the left? It's aldohexose, because that's an aldehyde, versus the one on the right is a ketohexose. And these are both D's, because if we looked at that penultimate carbon, the next to last one, because remember this would be first carbon, so because it's the aldehyde, and just like here in the ketone, this would be carbon number 2, because it has top priority over an alcohol, or higher priority over alcohol. So if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbons, kind of thing. We look at the penultimate one, we see the alcohol's on the right, so both of these are D. Down, whereas on here, this one would be an L. I wouldn't expect you to actually sit there and memorize all of their actual names. In fact, I don't have it on here because I just went ahead and hid them. But, okay. Oh no, there it is. I'm wrong. Because, yeah, okay. One thing, I just want to point this out. I told you I'm not going to make you memorize their names. What I find difficult with carbohydrates is D and L glucose are mirror images, right? They're enantiomers of each other. So many times I've seen people, if they did have to memorize their names, if you just flip this alcohol over here, it doesn't go from D to L glucose. It actually changes its entire name. It's no longer glucose. In fact, I don't have it memorized anymore, but I used to. So that's why it's really weird. It's not just one carbon that causes it goes by the glucose name. But, okay. All right. So then we go, and at least whenever I taught organic chemistry, I would always try to point this out. And whenever I was teaching enantiomers, I would usually use the 4 aldotetroses as an example. Because you can have, enantiomers technically were mirror images that were non-superposable on each other, but then you can actually have something called diastereomers. Diastereomers occur when you have more than one chiral carbon. Okay, so technically, they are stereoisomers, but they're not going to be enantiomers of each other. Right? And so that's why they're showing here. If you notice, this is one of the times that if we just flip on the erythrose, if you just flip one carbon, it goes from being erythrose to 3ose. So, but yeah, we have D versus L erythrose, we have D versus L 3ose, and then technically erythrose and 3ose are called diastereomers of each other. Okay. Oh, that's just more about pictures. Hayworth projections. Again, this should be reviewed. Right. Hayworth projections occur because in vivo, or actually even in vitro, it doesn't really matter, but in solution many times you don't see the sugars in that linear formation. Instead they form cyclic groups. And that's because, remember, alcohols are good nucleophiles and the aldehyde or ketone is a good electrophile, and so they make what's called hemiacetal, if you think back to organic chemistry, what's called. But it literally is sort of like a scorpion. It can come back and attack itself. I guess scorpions have heard can't see themselves or that they're immune, but you kind of get an idea. They kind of look like a scorpion's tail. They come and they attack itself, and they form a cyclic group. Okay, and that's called a Hayward projection. Those cyclic groups have special names. We'll go over that in just a moment. Okay, so I want to spend a little bit more time on this, and so here, this is go. Oh, I'll come back to that because we have to have ways to differentiate if the alcohol attacks from above or attacks from below the plane, because they make different enantiomers of each other, and so they have different stereoisomers, of each other, and so they call them beta and alpha. And so you may have even, if you're like reading chemical compounds or something in like biology lab, sometimes it may say beta D glucose because it tells you exactly which enantiomer it is, and it just lets you know whether or not the alcohol attached from above or below. And I've got little ways to differentiate this. Okay, so what happens is the most common ones are 5 or 6 membered rings, which you actually already know this without realizing that you do. And the reason why I say that is you've seen this little booger over and over and over and over again, right? It's the ribose that makes like the DNA and RNA chain. Looks like that whenever you add things on there. And so that's a 5-membered ring, but they are also the other ones that make 6-membered rings. Okay. The carbon that got attacked has a special name called the anomeric carbon. So I've got that term, I thought, yeah, there it is. This one, it's called the anomeric. That's the carbon that got attacked. And I'll explain what that means, beta versus alpha, in just a moment. I've got a better picture of it. This is just a review from organic chemistry, how aldehydes can get attacked by alcohols to make hemiacetals and acetals. For ketones, they're called hemiketals. Whoops. And ketals. I'm not going to ask you, draw the hemiketal and blah, blah, blah. It's just a review. Okay? All right, so this is the way to draw the Hayward projections. You start off with the Fisher projection, and then you rotate it. So the way that I do it is I take it, I rotate it, clockwise. Sorry, I have to enter into it. I rotate it clockwise. Any of the alcohols that's on the right-hand side is now going down, and the alcohols on the left-hand side are going up. Depending upon whether it's making a 6-membered ring or a 5-membered ring is which alcohol is the attacking. And remember, the oxygen takes one of the numbers of that ring. So when we say a 5-membered ring, it's actually 4 carbons and an oxygen. 6-membered ring is 5 carbons and an oxygen. And so I like to draw, I always call it scorpion just because that's how I remembered it. Because this kind of looks like a little scorpion's tail to me. But in this one, the carbon number 5 has what will be the alcohol that's the nucleophile doing the attacking. So if you notice when we draw it down, rotating it, was that clockwise? All of these, or both of these, which is on carbons 2 and 3, are both pointing down. So there's carbon 2. I said carbon 2. Carbon 2 and 4, I can't count. Carbon 2 and carbon 4 are both going down. Carbons 3 and carbon, well, it doesn't matter. But carbons 3 is going up. Okay, because carbon 5's alcohol is doing the attacking. So there it is. It goes in, smacks, boom, bang. You know, sound effects optional. Something's going to break or give. You make the tetrahedral intermediate. And then this one you don't collapse the tetrahedral intermediate. Okay, you're only making it. Let's see here, we only have 2 oxygens. We have 2 oxygens. If it attacked from above, so let me draw it out. So we have this alcohol coming in, and it's attacking from above. When it comes into attack, boom, that means the new alcohol that's forming, whoops, I forgot my oxygen, is going to be going down. See, because it's attacking from above. If it attacked from below, like this, it's going to be pointing up. Oh, and by the way, this little box here is called the anomeric carbon. Okay. All right, now let me erase some of this. No, that's not erase. Sorry. Let me erase some of this stuff. Okay, so if we notice here, if we start off, most of the biologically important sugars are D. So usually, you just have to have a Miss America, if you can remember one thing, just remember most of them are D. Assuming you start off with a D, the scorpion's tail, you see the scorpion's tail? If the alcohol on the anomeric carbon is on the opposite side, see it's going down, the scorpion's tail going up, it's called an alpha. If it's on the same side, it's called a beta. I remembered it because alpha, opposite, they both start with a vowel. Well, I didn't spell out alpha. Beta, which starts with a B, and same are both consonants. Okay, so alpha is opposite. And that's true for D sugars. For L sugars, it's the exact opposite of that, but for the biologically relevant, almost all of them are D. You can write down ignore references to Pyrenos and stuff. We haven't talked about that yet. I got these out of order. Oh, they're anomeric. Oh, pretty. Okay. You can remember once again that they really don't look like, they're not planar, they're like chairs. It makes a chair conformation, just like from organic chemistry. You can have axial and equatorial. Nothing new there. Okay. So that's just showing you an alpha D glucose. Glucopyranose and glucose are the same thing. So where did that pyranose come from? Because not only can we classify them based off of whether they're an aldose or a ketose, or based them off of the fact that they are 5-membered or 6-membered rings. Where did I go? Aldose or ketose, or based them off of the number of carbons in the entire compound. We can also, whenever they're cyclical, base them off of whether or not they're 5-membered or 6-membered rings. I'm getting ahead of myself. And so this is where they said, hey, look, the 5-membered ring looks an awful lot like furan, so we're going to call them furanoses. The 6-membered rings look an awful lot like pyrans, so we're going to call them pyranoses. And that's why that last one said glucopyranose, because it lets you know it's a 6-membered ring versus glucopyranose would be a 5-membered ring. There are some that occur more often than others. Once again, I would just want you to know, if I said draw an example of a pyranose, or if I gave you sugar, said is that a pyranose or furanose, you'd be able to pick it out. Or draw an example of a furanose. Furanoses would look something like this. Like what we drew for ribose. OH. This is just one example. Okay, so that would be a furanose. Not only that, but that one would that be an alpha or a beta? Beta. So, it's a beta furanose. That's why I said it is what it is. Oh, that's the same thing. Just words. Terminal C2OH. That's scorpion's tail. That's not the scientific term for it. Okay. And then these are just more examples. Just to show you how I don't like this kind of drawing on the Fisher projections, personally. So I never draw this way. I don't think you'll ever see me draw that way. Versus now you can see that, it's kind of blurry. I don't know why this is kind of blurry. This is a ribopyranose versus a glucopyranose. Okay. And you don't have to memorize. I would have to give you, if I said, okay, draw me a beta D glucose, or glucopyranose, I would have to give you what glucose looked like at the beginning. Okay. Then I could expect you to say, okay, break it down. Pyranose means it's going to be a 6-membered ring. Given glucose, beta means it's going to be going up. Okay. Yep.
So the horizontal line is supposed to be pointing towards you, right? Does that mean they're coming up towards you?
Towards you right now?
Like you said,
Here, on the Fisher, these technically aren't Fisher, well, it says Fisher, but it's not, that's Fisher projection. If you see this Fisher projection, they're coming slightly out of the plane towards you. versus this one and this one's going slightly away from you. So it's not.
How do they all go slightly away from you though, all the vertical lines? You know?
Because you can imagine here, here, here. See what I'm saying? They're all.
Okay.
It's not planar. This is what they say. All right. So just because, I mean, these are alcohol, so they can be oxidized and reduced, right? So a reducing sugar. This is something that even when I took Gen Chem, even when I teach this sometimes, I have to really sit and think about it because it always to me seems counterintuitive. A reducing sugar means that it reduces an oxidizing agent, right? Okay. So the reason why we point this out is because they have what they call a reducing end, but the reducing end is being oxidized. So, just have to think it through. So this is just showing you an example of that. This does not happen in vivo because we don't have Toll's reagent in vivo, but it's really, really, really cool. I used to like to show this whenever I taught Gen Chem if we had any extra silver around, because you just take the sugar, you add in some Toll's reagent, and it forms a mirror on the bottom of this. And it's really cool. If there's any reducing sugar present. But if they call it reducing sugar, it's really important for when we start putting saccharides together to make polysaccharides. One end will be like the free reducing end, they call it the reducing end. One would not be necessarily, so that's why they talk about that. They do that, well actually I've got an example of that coming up, probably next class, so don't give it away. But yeah, this doesn't happen, we don't have this reagent, but we do oxidizing and reducing reagents in vivo, we just don't use these same kind of reagents here, okay? But we can see here that the alcohol goes to an it goes to cyclic ester, which by the way this is called. Do you know what this cyclic ester is called in organic chemistry? I don't see Doris books right now, you knew that. It's one of my favorites, it's called a lactone. It sounds like a group, like a singing group in the 60s, lactones. It's called a cyclic ester is called a lactone. Cyclic amide is called a lactam, like the big lactam does. And so yeah, it was a lactone. Does anyone remember from organic chemistry, how do we know that it's got oxidized? Like just by looking at it, how do we know that it got oxidized? This carbon versus that carbon. I don't know, I probably didn't touch it, but this carbon, how do we know this carbon got oxidized? Just by eyeballing it. You could figure out the oxidation number, but there's a way to eyeball it and say. It's what? Mm-hmm. Because it's making 3 bonds to oxygens now, and it was making 2 bonds to oxygens. 1, 2. Like if it's just a regular alcohol, it'd be making only 1 bond to oxygen. So anytime you're increasing the carbon to oxygen bonds, you're oxidizing it. Anytime you're increasing the number of carbon to hydrogen bonds, you're reducing it. Okay. All right. And then finally, if you can oxidize it, kind of give it away, you can reduce it. I used to take the time, especially since I taught both organic and biochemistry, I used to say, well, I could do this, I can go from an aldehyde to a ketone and blah, blah, blah. At least, but I won't, because I'm sure you guys all remember. But this is just one example. Obviously, you don't have nickel electrodes inside our body, so we have to use something else to use dehydrogenases, for example. Enzymes, I know, don't want to hear the word enzyme. You have enzymes that do something in vivo. But here, you can imagine, I know CHO means it's a C carbon double bonded to oxygen with a hydrogen coming off of it, and it went from having 2 oxygen bonds to just having 1 bond to the oxygen. So that's how we know that it's being reduced. This one's actually important. What is sorbitol? Do you know? Actually, a lot of these reduced sugars are used every day in everyday life now. Not so much 30 years ago, but nowadays there are. What is sorbitol? I'm looking. What are you chewing right now? Don't show it to me. Oh. 5. Is that sugar-free? Oh, well, I was going to say, if it's a sugar-free gum, it's usually with sorbitol. So it's a sweetener, a lot of sweeteners, because our body can't recognize it. Nobody recognizes it, so we don't recognize that. But by the way, there are also many kinds of laxatives. Okay, so that's going to sum up for today.